FIBA Rule Changes 2026. A lot of these changes in this video will be mostly that categorization is done, meaning we have two categories of technical fouls. Unsportslike foul now gets split into disruptive and flagrant fouls. We also have some changes in definition to make it a little bit more clear. And sometimes when that happens, it reduces how many interpretations they have to write because the rule is a little bit more clear and doesn't need separate interpretation for it. So looking at the two different categories of technical fouls, we'll look at the change of the definition. I think the biggest thing that stands out here is when they added "or provoking," including contact with hands, arms, body, or the ball, which does not rise to the level of a flagrant or disqualifying foul. Because it's crucial that we had in the past that technical fouls were always non-contact fouls. And anything that was more than that would be automatically a disqualifying foul or an unsportsmanlike foul. So this addition allows when there's a little bit of pushing after a dead ball where people are trying to provoke each other, kind of like the almost getting into a fight but pushing. That would normally be an unsportsmanlike foul in the game, but now we're just gonna attach a technical foul category 1 to that. So that one change of definition is crucial. The other one is excessive swinging of elbows without contact. Maybe they added that to be a little bit more clear, where maybe someone excessively swung their elbows and hit someone, and maybe that referee added a technical foul on top of a unsportsmanlike foul, offensive foul, or disqualifying foul, depending on the severity of the contact. So now it's being more clear that excessive swinging of elbows without contact is the technical foul. When we look through it, the other change that is noticed is they took away disregarding warnings given by referees. That's no longer in a bullet point for the new rules. I imagine part of it is that disregarding the warnings, if you look through this list, it doesn't need to be there. So if you give a delay of game, which is on the list, that's disregarding a warning. If you warn them for behavior, they get a technical foul, it would hit one of these categories. You don't need to say it's disregard warnings because all of them are covered. On the next set here, we split them into category 1 and category 2. Everything else falls in line. Category 1 is more severe, and you'll see why that matters a little bit later on. But anything that is deemed severe in the game, in the sense of disrespecting an opponent, disrespecting the official, using language or gesturing, taunting, things that could be dangerous, excessive swinging of elbows, putting your hand in the face of the opponent's eyes, and fake being fouled. Try to fool the referee into deeming the contact to being worse than it is. And these are all in the severe category. Now, category 2 is what I would call administrative, where it's less severity. So with this change, it's a little bit more balanced in our discipline of behaviors on the court. So delaying the game, deliberately touching the ball after a pass through the basket, or preventing a throw-in, those things happen. And it's not that it's a natural thing, because it can be. It's just more so that isn't at the same level as disrespecting a referee or an opponent. So this is more administrative because it's less severe. Hanging on the rim is the same, and goaltending after a last free throw. These are all things of reduced severities. They fall into category 2. Now, when we get to the unsportsmanlike foul, it's split into 2 categories. Just like the technical foul, we have the categories of flagrant and disruptive foul. To make this easier, not only did I separate these different categories of unsportsmanlike fouls into what their new categories will be, but I also put the category they are. And what I mean by that is referees identify unsportsmanlike fouls in our post games, our communication to coaches, our game reports of, we just had a C1 unsportsmanlike foul take place. So those that use that terminology of C1, C2, C3, C4, I also put that in there to make it a little bit easier. Now, the one thing you should note is that the Category 1 unsportsmanlike foul technically falls under flagrant and disruptive. And why I say that is later you're going to see disruptive has also the category of end of quarter fouls, which is where players would foul to stop the clock and they wouldn't play the ball, and that would fall under a C1 unsportsmanlike foul. However, those aren't as prevalent now. What typically gets reported are ones where, for example, someone grabs the jersey off ball, which is not directly playing the ball within the spirit and intent of the rules. So for the sake of making this a little bit more simple for an overview, I put C1 and C2 under flagrant fouls because a majority of the C1s that typically get called now would fall under a flagrant foul. So in addition to the new categories, we also have a new signal to represent disruptive foul, which is a stop the clock signal on a personal foul, which is a closed fist, and then you bring the arm down to show 2 shots. A disruptive foul is a player's illegal contact with an opponent which does not rise to the level of a flagrant foul, and which disrupts the flow of a game and places the opponent at a disadvantage. So looking at this, like I said, it's a little bit less severe, but the 3 categories that we'll show are situations that would be deemed disrupting the flow of a game. So the criteria for the disruptive fouls are the following: an unnecessary contact caused by the defensive player anywhere on the court, not legitimately attempting to directly play the ball in order to stop the clock and or shot clock at the end of quarter or overtime. This would be the one that wasn't in the list because this would normally fall under a C1, but now they made it its own category under disruptive foul with an expanded definition to cover these situations. Now we have our category 3 that we've seen that they added to. So any unnecessary contact caused by the defensive player not legitimately attempting to directly play the ball in order to stop the progress of the offensive team in transition. This applies until the offensive player starts the act of shooting. This definition addition helps with the consistent application of this rule under the disruptive foul. As for the old Category 4 unsportsmanlike foul becoming the disruptive foul, all they changed in the wording was adding a capitalized T. When we look at flagrant foul, it's not a new signal, it's just a reallocated signal. So the unsportsmanlike foul signal is now the flagrant foul signal. And they've enhanced the definition, which helps in the identification, but also the broad spectrum of severe fouls we can have. So a flagrant foul is a player's illegal contact with an opponent, which violates the spirit of sportsmanship and fair play, and by its nature and or the severity level, exceeds the limit of a personal or disruptive foul. The criteria for flagrant fouls are the following: not a legitimate basketball play against an opponent with or without a ball. This would be the partial definition of the old C1 unsportsmanlike foul. Reckless, violent, or dangerous act which causes or may cause injury to an opponent. That's the new addition to the rule book for terminology, which is like putting your foot under a player. Then our old C2 unsportsmanlike foul, excessive hard contact in an effort to play the ball or an opponent. Now that they've made these changes to be more balanced in the discipline associated with the different fouls you can attain by having the 2 categories of technical fouls and disruptive and flagrant fouls, since it was changed based on severity, we also have to change what would be ruled as a game disqualification for a player depending on what they accumulated in the game. Originally, it was 2 technical fouls, 2 unsportsmanlike fouls, or a technical foul and an unsportsmanlike foul. But now we have to change it because of our differences of severity. So it's either 2 flagrant fouls, 2 category 1 technical fouls, 1 category 1 technical foul, and 1 flagrant foul. So as it is, all it did was sub in the severity ones, and in this clean graphic it shows the same thing here. When you are disqualified, these are the 3 combinations you can have to be disqualified based on the accumulation of these new foul categories. That results also in a change to our head coach disqualification category and criteria, because we can't have a category 2 technical foul from the team bench area. So they added category 1, for game disqualification for the head coach. And they also had to make that change for the penalty because a player getting a technical foul, regardless if it's category 1 or 2, will count as a player foul. And then they added the category 1 technical foul terminology under penalty for the head coach, because you can't have a category 2 from anyone permitted to sit on the team bench. Since we have new foul categories, it also has an impact on the score sheet. Now our table officials will have specific codes they will put down for these situations. So that way we make sure that if they accumulated what we just saw for game disqualification, we have the correct information. In addition to new score sheet markings, we have a new signal for delay of game. Whenever we have a delay of game situation, the signal is an open hand, 2 counts from your chest to outside your body. For active shooting, they expanded the definition to be more precise, with separating it to jump shots and other moving shots and drives to the basket. And then we added moving the shoulders in addition to the ball upwards towards the opponent's basket for active shooting on those jump shots and moving shots. For this one, it helps us determine when they're in their active shooting for when the player has the ball, so they gather the ball upon completion of a dribble or catches the ball while progressing, then continues the shooting motion towards the basket, usually upwards. So here, active shooting happens after the foul. They get held and then they gather the ball, so it's not an active shooting. The hold on the shoulder of the Raptors player happens before the active shooting. As you can see, he takes another dribble and then starts his active shooting. So this is a foul not in the active shooting. Then we have this play where the player already gathers the ball. As you can see, they completed their dribble. 2 hands are on the ball when they're getting contacted by the defender. And then they finish their shot towards the rim. So this would be in the active shooting with someone with the ball. A player catches the ball while progressing. We have a ball being passed their teammate for an alley-oop finish. They're being passed the ball. They catch it while they're progressing to the rim to score, and then they get contacted. That would be an active shooting foul. Then we have, for a player to be in the active shooting, they must be in the front court. So we're disregarding any shot from the backcourt unless the shot is taken at the end of quarter or overtime, or at the end of the shot clock at any time in the game, because those are realistic scenarios that someone might shoot from those locations on the court. If it's at any other point in the game, players are just manipulating situations to create shooting fouls. So any situation that isn't trying to beat the game clock from expiring or the expiring of the shot clock, we need to have a shot in the front court for it to be active shooting. So if they're doing a rip through move in the back court like this Phoenix Suns player is, we know that it won't be active shooting, versus this play where the player grabs the ball and makes a shot attempt on Detroit from the backcourt, but we have about 5 seconds left in the quarter. So this is a play that would meet that criteria of end of game clock situation. This would be active shooting. Then in situations where a player is fouled on a jump shot or other moving shots, if they pass the ball after being fouled, it is no longer active shooting. If the ball is moving upwards in a direction away from the basket, it is not active shooting. And an example would be that side-to-side rip through, because it's not going in the direction towards the basket. If the player is not facing the basket when the ball is moved in an upwards motion, it wouldn't be active shooting. In this clip, contact occurs before they even start an upwards motion, but it's hard to find a clip where someone's not facing the basket to shoot. So if we were to pretend contact occurred roughly there while they were in their upwards motion, it would not be active shooting. And here's a chart made of a little bit of a checklist for your jump shot active shooting. Need to be facing the basket, upwards motion to the basket, and the ball has to be thrown towards the basket for us to have active shooting. This wording is to help eliminate any potential inconsistencies in the interpretation of a double dribble situation. So it just applies the different scenarios where a player loses control of a live ball, which would be a shot for a goal. The ball is touched by an opponent. On a pass or a fumble, the ball touches or is touched by another player. A couple changes to the IRS system that we can now review at any time of the game. The addition of a possibility to review the goaltending or interference violation at any time of the game after a foul is committed, which allows the elimination of mistakes that directly impact the scoreboard, either +2 or 3 points or -2 or 3 points, if violations are missed or incorrectly called. If you want to see what basket interference or goaltending looks like or more about that, we have a video on it. Additionally, during the last 2 minutes or less in the fourth quarter in each overtime, the new addition allows to determine whether a thrower in has released the ball from the hands or not when a throw-in foul is called. Such game situation is closely linked to a defensive team's effort to prevent the game and or shot clocks from running, and therefore should have the potential impact on the score. If you want to learn more about the throw-in foul, we have a video for that too. It's in the 2022 FIBA Basketball Rule Changes. But the two additions listed apply for head coach challenges as well. It's just the time restrictions do not apply because the head coach challenge can be requested at any time in the game. And in addition to the IRS, we do have to create changes for wording because we now have disruptive and flagrant fouls instead of an unsportslike foul. The removal requirement for socks to be visible reflects the practical realities of modern equipment, reducing unnecessary administrative interruptions and enforcement issues. It's just basically adapting to the different styles and types of socks people want to wear. There's different height, lengths, and that. So this is more flexible for those athletes that like to wear different types of socks. As for the court, allowing that flexibility for the line colors, so that way they can have event branding and commercial design elements. Maintains essential visibility and fairness standards. So it allows flexibility, but also consistency for everyone else that's designing the court. And if you want kind of a cheat sheet guide, here's what it looks like, and the visual display of how the court line should be consistent and line up on, but also the flexibility. Then the simple addition of whenever a role of commissioner is referenced, it also applies to the role of technical delegate, which is just creating consistency of terminology across the competitions where we might have different governance standards / structures being applied all across the world. Then they did a change in our team classification. Previous rules lack clarity for ranking teams outside the final stages of competitions where there were no classification games played. So for example, teams eliminated in the quarterfinals, qualification of quarterfinals, round of 16, basically anything that wasn't top 4 because they had placement games for, they restructured it to help out in those categories. And you can read more about it through this article change.